But I can say, after years of holding politicians accountable through journalism, what made you take the leap into politics yourself?
Well, to some extent, it was a natural progression in that I've always seen myself as an advocate. And politics, as you know, to some extent, especially representational, politics is about advocacy.
Yeah.
And being the governor, which I gained that title by virtue of my advocacy, I felt that the next step would be perhaps people representation. And I must tell you that it was 2 times that I entered into the political arena. And the first time was on a JLP ticket. And how that came about is that Ed Bartlett, my very good friend and still is, um, he approached me out of the blue one day and said, Lord, why you not decide and try out this political thing? And he was my very good friend at the time. And as a matter of fact, I taught him at STETS. I did a brief stint at STETS when I was at college. And we developed a very, I saw in him leadership qualities at the time. And even from that early stage, I was encouraging him to, go into public service. And so here we are now, and he's in politics full time. I'm in journalism full time. And we were talking one day, and he said, Lloyd, why you don't try this thing? So I said, I don't know. He said, no, but you're an ideal candidate because you have a very good public record, etc. So I thought about it, and at the time, South St. James, the Labour Party needed a candidate urgently. They had a little Chinese man in there who could hardly speak English. I don't know why they were using him to begin with. But what I had gathered is that he had a lot of money. So they were leveraging that.
Yeah.
But they realized that there was no way that he could win because he could hardly speak English. Anyway, so I was there thinking about at that time now, I was president of the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce and Industry. There's this plaque right behind me here. And I said, but why, if I'm going to run, I would have to give up my presidency. And he really pushed me. And then I remember one day I was going to a meeting at Rose Hall. It was then the Rose Hall Intercontinental Hotel. It's now Hilton Resort. And I was also the chairman of the Cruise Shipping Council. There's so many things I was involved in. And as I was entering the lobby of the hotel, Noel slowly, who's on the other side of the fence, politically, PNP man, approached me and he, in a most, almost violent manner, and said to me, Lloyd, I understand that you are going to be running for the JLP and that you have been paid $300,000 to do so. I said, are you damn crazy? I have never been and will never be for sale. How dare you say that to me? Well, that's what I've been told. And when I thought, because up to that point, I wasn't overly excited about running.
Mhm.
But when this man approached me like that and said that to me, I was so caught up about it. I said, all right, if that's how you look at it, I'm going to run. And I'm not running because I'm not getting one red cent from anybody. I'm going to just run on a matter of principle. And I was being realistic because I didn't think I could win. Because this is about 3 weeks before the election. Right? There's no way I could go in there. And then Keller, who was the incumbent, was a seasoned politician. And I said I would just go in for the experience and the fun of it, quite frankly. I remember I went down to a meeting and Siaga called me and thanked me for deciding to run. And I ran. And this was 1997. Of course, the JLP lost, and I lost too. But interestingly, in that brief 2 weeks, I did extremely well. Everybody was surprised. I said, "But Lloyd, if you had been in there long enough, you would have won."
You don't want to see it, yeah.
In 2 weeks, they have this thing, you have to get a certain percentage of votes for you to get back your deposit. And I went over that. So there it was. I did very well. And that was history. I just did it and then I forgot it after that. I said, no, I'm not going to. And then I was exposed to certain aspects of the politics. I remember when I was in a certain town, I think it was Maroon Town, and a group of guys came up to me, drove up in a car, and they called me aside and said, boss, we are here to support, but you see, you have to set us up, just get us a house, buy up some flour and food, and take care of me, and we will take care of you. You know what that means?
Yeah, that's...
And I looked at them and I said, look, you're barking up the wrong tree.
Was this because you went this before you went to run for the PNP?
Yes.
Okay.
That was 97.
Okay.
Because I ran for the PNP in 2011.
Okay.
I said, no, I can't do that. And they were so annoyed that when they were walking, I went, so, I said, no, I wasn't going to. You see what I'm saying? So, I don't want to come across pompous or self-righteous, but that is me. I cannot sacrifice my integrity. I can't. And that was one of the reasons why when I ran for the PMP and won, I left it because of a similar situation. Because in 2011, why I decided to run again, Portia Simpson at the time, who I liked very much and admired as a person, she invited me one time to her office in Kingston. That time she was the leader of the opposition. And she said, Lloyd, I would love you to run in St. James. There was this new constituency created, St. James Central, brand new constituency. And she would love me to run. I said, boy, I'm not really into this thing. And I said, no, man. And she had me there for about 2.5 hours. These love seats.
Yeah.
Me and she sitting on this love seat. And for 2.5 hours, she held my hand and she told me her life story and she did everything to convince me to run. You know the power of a woman. And so I had to say yes. And I remember when I was leaving, Tony Hilton, one of her parliamentarians, came in and he saw me and said, wait, Lloyd, I understand you're going to be running for the PMP, man, to represent the PMP. And that was when my respect for Portia grew even more so, because she said, no, I'm not just coming to run for PMP, or he's coming to represent his people. And it touched me deeply. That it made me more willing to go and run. It was a seat that was cut to be won by the JLP. So it wasn't felt that I could win it. But I knew I could win it. Why? Again, being a product of Montego Bay, everybody knew me. They knew my parents. They knew where I grew up.
And you're the governor.
Yes. And we have maybe over 30, 40 odd newspaper vendors who come from the inner city areas, who all depend on selling the paper. You think they would betray me? So, and I was the governor, so I knew within myself, because even within the PMP at the time, I remember I went to a meeting in Sablama, Region 6 meeting, and there was this tremendous skepticism that I could never win the seat. And I stood up and said, don't you worry, I'm going to win the seat. And I won. I remember when I was in Parliament, one of the times, Carl Samuda, one of the the JLP bigwigs, he said, Lloyd, you I have to commend you because he was the general secretary at the time for the JLP, and he said, I personally sat down with me and my colleagues and we cut the boundaries in such a way that the JLP had to win and must win, and you come and win, you know. So here I was now, and why I had up to this day, and as I said, I don't like to blow my own trumpet, but I was a damn good MP, very good MP. I did a lot of things. And why I left it, I could have stayed there, and if I had stayed there, I would be MP today. I can tell you that. Because even the EY Clark, the JLP man who is there now, will tell you that the only person who can beat him tomorrow morning is me. But when I was in there, the ugly side of the politics began to emerge, which I couldn't deal with. I remember things like this poor little old lady could barely walk into my office. I used to be at my office cause I told them I don't want any of them come here to my mirror office, which they didn't like. I said, this is my business, and my business I have to deal with JLP supporters, PMP supporters, and the wider public. I can't have you coming here to disrupt that process. I have an office elsewhere where you can come and see. And I remember I went to the office. I normally go there on a Friday. And I was there this particular day. And would you believe this old woman came in? And the first thing that all these PMP supporters shouted was, Mr. MP, do have nothing to do with that. So I say, oh, Labour, it makes you come out. No, you have nothing. But what I normally would do when they come in, I assist them. I assist people. Not handouts, but if they, for example, some of them, they might need a little zinc for the house, or, they want to start a little business, I give them a startup and so on. And I got up and I said, no, 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 no. And I sat her down and I said, she's staying here. And I'm going to assist her if I can. They didn't like that. The straw that broke the camel back for me when I decided, I said, I'm not going to continue in this thing, because that's not me. The Keller, who is the Minister of Social Security, called me and said, Lloyd, I'm going to allocate a certain amount of money to you to assist the most needy people in your constituency. You determine how you apportion it, etc., etc. Me now being the type of person that I am, I could do it all by myself. But I said, no, I have 3 councillors. Is it 3 or 4? It was Salt Spring, Rose Heights. Yeah. No, it's 4 councillors. So I called in the 4 councillors and said, look, I have this amount of money and I'm going to apportion it to each of you. And what you're going to do is identify X number of persons in the constituency for assistance. One day the constituency secretary called me and said, Mr. Smith, what is this? I can't handle this one. That's what you're talking about. One particular councillor. You know who he had on his list? His wife's mother, his sweetheart, and I could go on. All people, none of whom really deserve to get any benefits. I'll never forget. In this very office, I summoned him to my office here and sat him down. And I said, what is the meaning of this? And you know what he said to me? Me put it plain like how he said it. You're Jamaican, you must understand him language. Lord, Mr. MP, I know, sir, so this thing go. I said, really? And in the back of my mind, I decided to start packing up. I said, no, sir, I'm not staying in this thing if I saw it go.
Corrupt.
not staying in this thing. And a lot of other things happened which I wasn't prepared to go along with. Outright skullduggery, outright corruption, using public funds in all sorts of ways. And I couldn't deal with it.
Mm.
And after a while, when they realized that I was not prepared to do those things, they started to fight against me. And I decided quietly that I was going to leave the politics. They got in a little young miss, ostensibly to overthrow me, but I quit preemptively because I saw what was coming. Because I remember when they were going to have a selection as to who should succeed me, I was still being asked, even by Portia herself, begging me, please reconsider. We'll support you, blah, blah, blah. One of the persons who supposed to come and said to me, Mr. Smith, don't go near there. The day of the selection process, gunmen were brought in from Kingston.
Intention to get you.
So I just quietly left. If the PMP, and I'm telling you this without any hesitation, and you can quote me anywhere because it's a fact, if the PMP had not allowed that foolishness to go on, they would have won that election. The JLP won by 1 seat. I would have kept my seat, and the PMP would therefore have been in power. And they know it up to this day. They know it.
What would you say is your proudest achievement as an MP?
Well, first of all, that I was able to convince a lot of the constituents that politics ought not to be about corruption. It ought not to be about, just getting handouts, because I made a fiery speech at my first conference that I'm not into the licky licky yummy yummy mentality. And some people say you're mad. You're not going to stay there long when you say that. But there were a lot of people who followed me, and I did a lot in education. Education was one of my major emphases, and so I helped the schools a lot. And one of my proudest achievements is that I had always been advocating for Montego Bay to have a cultural center. And right now it does have a cultural center, which I engineered in the old courthouse building. If you go there, you'll see it.
Yeah, been there.
That was my dream. It became a reality under my leadership. I got the necessary people together, everything. And then I went into the background, because you have to know politics, right? Because especially with the change of government, if I were still upfronting it, it would have been sabotage. So I deliberately got somebody who had nothing to do with politics, Joseph Fortsmeyer, the managing director at Roundale, to chair it. And I pulled myself out quietly. I'm still a director, Mark, but I don't upfront myself because I didn't want it to be killed. And it is still there, doing very well as a cultural center. Right? That, to me, is one of my finest achievements as an MP. A lot of benefits came to the people. A lot of roads were fixed. All sorts of things happened. And you can go out there and walk the constituency and ask people. They will tell you. Because to this day, if I were to go back there, I would win back.
You win again. Politics is a brutal.
It is. It is.
What was the hardest lesson you learned during your time in office?
In politics? That people will betray you just for what they themselves personally can acquire. They sacrifice personal aggrandizement on the altar of loyalty. They prefer to get what they want, even if it means stabbing you in the back. And that hurt me a lot. I couldn't deal with that. I couldn't deal with that. When that counselor tell me, MP, you know, so I saw this thing go, I realized what I was getting into, and that this politics thing is about just manipulating and using people. And I couldn't be a part of that. I'm sorry. And I'm happy I came out of it. And I came out of it with my integrity. You will never go anywhere and hear that I was a corrupt politician or that I was involved in any acts of corruption. None. Even my greatest detractors would never tell you that.
Yeah.